Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Lonely Liberal Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Zankin, and I am so happy to have you on this, honestly, very hot Wednesday. I don't know if it's hot where you are, but up here in Massachusetts, it's what the locals would call a frickin' squatcha-kit. No, but it is hot. So I hope you're keeping cool if you are in this heat wave. I'm sure it'll go back down to like 40 degrees in a couple of days. But how you doing? How's it going? We got a great show for you today. We're going to be talking about this slush fund that Trump just set up a couple of days ago. But before we do, I wanted to ask you guys, do you know what a slush fund is? Because it's one of those terms that a lot of people have heard but really can't define. And when I say people, I mean me like a couple of days ago. I mean, it's like a vibe thing, right? So I figured I'd just start off, before we even get into the show, just defining what this word means. And a slush fund, here's the definition: a reserve of money used for corrupt or illicit purposes. It's discretionary, minimally overseen, and usually used for personal or political benefit. That's the definition. And when I was doing research on slush funds and famous slush funds of the past, the one thing that they almost all have in common is that they're secret, right? People don't want you to know that they have a slush fund because it's usually illegal, right? But this slush fund, this Trump slush fund, was announced in a Department of Justice press release. It's very, very brazen, and it's different from slush funds because of that. So I wanted to walk through it. I wanted to explain to all of you basically how Trump just created the largest, most openly corrupt slush fund in American history, and a little bit of a deep dive on the man running it, Mr. Todd Blanche, because he may be one of the most important people in Washington that you don't know a lot about. And I wouldn't blame you. He's the newly enacted Attorney General. So we got a lot to talk about today. and it's crazy. I'm laughing because, you do these research for these shows and you're just like, oh, you kind of have a rough idea of what it will look like. But then this is another one. You start digging, you're just like, Jesus Christ. So I got a lot to talk about. So without further ado, let's get to it. Okay, so how did we get here? So in January of this year, so a couple months ago, Trump sued the IRS. Remember, he's president, so his own government, for $10 billion over the 2019 leak of his tax returns to the press. Okay? Legal experts immediately flagged two problems with this lawsuit. One, the amount was way larger than Trump's entire net worth, right? And the other one, which I just alluded to, is he's suing an agency he controls. And actually, the IRS's own lawyers wrote a 25-page memo saying that the case was filed 2 years too late and should definitely be dismissed. Now, we don't know if that memo ever made the Department of Justice, but it is out there. It's a thing. And the judge also said this is basically too late. So that was the, consensus, is that this is going to get thrown out. The numbers are ridiculous and it's way too late. But rather than losing in court, if it were even to go to court, Trump dropped the lawsuit. And people immediately saw news reports of him dropping it. And it was, oh, yeah. I saw it all over. But there was an exchange, and this is where this whole starts. In return for dropping the lawsuit, his own Department of Justice created what they're calling an Anti-Weaponization Fund. So he settled with himself, basically. His administration is both the plaintiff and the defendant. So what is this fund? What is this Anti-Weaponization Fund? So it's technically $1.776 billion, and it's drawn from the Federal Judgment Fund, which, if you didn't know what that was, it's a permanent Treasury appropriation that's used to pay court judgments. It's not something that requires congressional vote. It's just kind of in the reserves. And so for this Anti-Weaponization Fund, who can apply, right? Who is this for? This is the definition. Anyone that claims they were, quote unquote, wrongfully targeted or harmed under the Biden administration. So only people that they think Biden hurt, apparently. So this is who's been explicitly eligible. The January 6 rioters, any right-wing think tank, MAGA Inc., the super PAC that Donald Trump controls, and we already got an application. This got filed a couple of days ago. Michael Caputo, the Trump HHS official who interfered with the CDC findings of COVID, he's seeking $2.7 million. So who will decide who gets this money? Well, it's a 5-member commission appointed by Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. But Trump retains the right to remove any member if he wants to. Also, here's another unbelievable disclaimer. Once the money is distributed, the administration has no liability whatsoever for fraud or misuse. So that means they can use that money for any way they want once they get it. That is nuts. And so this fund is supposed to be open until December 15th, 2028, about 6 weeks before Trump leaves office. If any unspent money would go back to the government. This is nuts. I hope you can tell this is crazy. I could go on and on and on about how insanely corrupt this is. But one thing that's been buried in the settlement, and something that I haven't heard anyone talk about, so this is actually maybe more interesting news for you in some ways, is that in this settlement, the IRS is now permanently barred from pursuing any existing tax claims against Trump, his family, or his businesses. Okay? The New York Times reported in 2024 that losing an IRS audit could have cost Trump over $100 million. So let's get the full picture here. He dropped a lawsuit that he was going to lose, Donald Trump that is, got a $1.8 billion fund for his political army, and he quietly erased his personal tax liability, which could be worth over $100 million. That is nuts. So you may be asking, okay, well, Todd Blanche is in charge of appointing these people, even though Trump can kick them out. Who is Todd Blanche? We've heard about him after Pam Bondi got booted. He took over. Who is this guy? So Todd Blanche is Trump's former personal criminal defense attorney. He's the one who represented Trump in the hush money trial, the Stormy Daniels trial, and all his federal crime cases. So Trump, shocker, appointed him deputy attorney general and then has elevated him to acting attorney general after he fired Bondi. So in Blanche's confirmation hearing, he said these words. He said there would be not a whiff of political partisanship. That's the direct quote. Since then, the Department of Justice has investigated or indicted James Comey, Letitia James, Jerome Powell, Senator Schiff, Kelly, and Slotkin, Governor Tim Walz, and Mayor Jacob Frey. Basically Trump's entire enemies list. And it's just ridiculous. I don't know. It is crazy to me that the man who appoints the board that distributes $1.8 billion with no court able to review his decisions has been so brazenly corrupt, frankly, in the last couple months. So I guess I wanted to end here to some extent. Is it actually a slush fund? You know, I defined it off the top of the show. And yeah, I mean, it's discretionary, right? No fixed eligibility rules. Criteria haven't been written yet. Blanche told senators yesterday he doesn't know what the rules will be. Minimal oversight. The oversight mechanisms exist on paper, but every one of them runs through Trump, so there's no court review. He can just do whatever he wants. Used for political benefit. I think you get it. Accountability gaps, we just described. Once money goes out, the administration can literally, I just can't believe this. I'm sorry. They explicitly wrote, there's no liability of fraud after the money is withdrawn. That's so crazy. But it's not secret, right? It was announced in a press release. And that's the one element that is traditionally missing. And I think that's kind of the point. It doesn't need to be secret when there's nothing anyone can do about it. And when you don't worry about any political ramification for your corruption, what's the point of being secret? Nixon had to hide Watergate because he thought something could go wrong if people found out. He was right. Trump doesn't need to because he knows his loyalists, his, frankly, cultists will do whatever he wants. And frankly, with the recent loss of Massey in this primary and Bill Cassidy in his primary, I mean, it seems like he's right. He runs the party. He runs the show, and it's terrifying. So all in all, this is crazy. I mean, how are people reacting? Well, the Department of Treasury's top lawyer, the general counsel, resigned literally under a few hours after the fund was announced. That's a great sign. 93 House Democrats filed an amicus brief calling it a specter of corruption and unparalleled in American history. I'm sure we all appreciate a good old amicus brief, so eye roll. But, I mean, it is interesting. Even Republicans said they didn't like it. Senate Majority Leader Toon said, not a big fan. And Senator Tillis said, imagine that, a fund to compensate people who assaulted Capitol Police officers. The 2 Capitol Police officers who were assaulted on January 6th, they have filed suit to block the fund. I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, this is what happens when the guardrails are gone. And that's our show, folks. Thank you so much for listening today. If you like the show, please give it a review wherever you are listening, or YouTube, like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. I really appreciate it. Also, shoot me an email at media@thelonelyliberal.com. Love to know what you guys think about this. I mean, who knows? Like all these Trump scandals, it's a documentary story a week, right? I mean, one week it's bribes from Qatar. Next week it's Epstein. This week it's a slush fund. Next week they're going to overthrow Cuban leadership. Who knows, right? It's hard to keep track of. But we got to document it, because when eventually this will happen, justice will prevail, and we need to remember exactly what was done, because let me tell you, this country seems to have a pretty short memory. I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye.